Welcome to the LG Wheelhouse. We are a new radio show based loosely around the AHL. I am your host, SirMikeKnight. With me is Hutch2323 and Colonel20. What's going on, guys?
This is it, man. How are you doing?
All right, so we're going to start by introducing ourselves. So I'm going to start with Colonel20. Colonel, let me hear about your background in the LG.
All right. Well, I've been around LG for well over a year now. I joined last March. I started in the CHL. I got randomly assigned to Drummondville in CHL Season 3. I then went on to take over the team as general manager in Season 4. We went on to win the Memorial Cup there, and I took over an AHL team my next season in Season 19. I was general manager of Syracuse, and we had a really good run in Season 19. And I ended up becoming general manager of Washington Capitals in Season 20 last season. So I've had management experience in all three levels at the league, and I've been around for not as long as some people, but for quite a long time. And I don't know. That's pretty much it, I guess. That's my LG history.
There you go. All right, Hutch, same question.
Okay, so my background here in LG is pretty similar to Colonel's. Joined up last June for Season 4 in the CHL. I was actually a member of Colonel's Drummondville team, and we went on and won the Memorial Cup. That season, I played left defense. The next season, Season 19, was kind of busy with school and stuff, so I wasn't around as much, but I just so happened to get on the Syracuse team that was once again ran by Colonel. For Season 19, I spent most of the season on the training camp, kind of functioning as a utility ECU. Spent most of my time playing goalie, and it worked out pretty well in the couple ECU games that I had. Season 20, I kind of stepped up to the plate and took AGM of Syracuse after Colonel left. I took over with my friend Prowsy8, who's currently the GM as well. And last season, I played left defense. So this season, Season 21, re-signed with Syracuse. And this season, I'm playing center for the first time. And I think it's going well so far.
All right. And for those who don't know me, I am SirMikeKnight. I have done a radio show where I have introduced myself before, but I'm going to do it again. This is like my 5th season in league gaming. Played a couple shortened seasons. I kept having to drop out or drop down to TC due to availability issues. Last season was my first full season. I got drafted by Niagara. I traded after the first week to Chicoutimi. The third week of the season, I became AGM of Chicoutimi after Berkese dropped out. We went on to the Memorial Cup Finals, lost to Belleville. We also lost the Q to Drummondville last season. And then this season, with Golden Aces again, I am the AGM of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, otherwise known as the Baby Pens. So that's about my history in the LG. Most of the people who know me from the IOHL. But moving on, we're going to go right into the show. We're going to talk about the Hamilton GM situation. And I believe, Hutch, you wanted to touch on that, didn't you?
Yeah, well, this one kind of caught me as a bit of a surprise. Being so early in the season to see Crosby kind of step down as the GM. To my knowledge, he's an NHL guy who kind of dropped back to take a GM role in the AHL. So, from what I can tell, during the week that he left us, there was a game overturned against Iowa because an illegal player was used. And of course, as we all know, if any illegal player is used, that game is automatically overturned. So following that, I guess there was some kind of commotion going on there, and Crosby decided that he was going to step down. The interesting part here, though, is the replacement GM, and that being Funsley. Now, most people around LG know Funsley. He's been around since Season 17. Came from the VHL during the merger. And I think it's a good pick here. I think that the Montreal staff really picked a good guy to take over because, Funsley's been in the LG since season 17, and he's been around the AHL a lot, and he probably has a good idea of who's who in the AHL, rather than picking some random guy off the roster and just throwing him into the hot seat there. So I think it was a good decision on the Montreal staff to make sure that their AHL team was secure by bringing in a guy who's familiar with LG, familiar with, how the whole league system works. And, Funsley may not necessarily be the best player, but in terms of, knowing the ins and outs of the league, I think they made a great decision.
Oh, I think it was a great decision as far as a manager goes. I know Funsley from CIHL. That's where I first met him, and that's kind of what turned me on to the LG. Is a lot of the guys at CIHL. We're talking about LG, IOHL too. So that's when I joined the LG, and it was mostly due to Funsley. So I mean, it's not a bad management choice there at all. Colonel, you got anything to say about it?
I think that the Bulldogs are doing exceptionally well for a team that lost their GM so early. Because normally, if you lose a GM early in the season, it's kind of tough to replace them. And I'm not sure, but I would imagine Crosby was a pretty good player for them. And losing one of your better players and your leader, so to speak, is really tough. But despite all that, they're still pushing a 64 win percentage, and they are leading the league in time on attack differential right now. Um, so I mean, they're doing really well. I think they made a good move. Funsley's been doing a great job so far. There's no doubt about that.
Right, right. So we touched base on the Hamilton GM situation. We talked about a game being overturned. Now let's talk about some more games being overturned. Let's talk about the Marlies. Colonel.
Okay. So basically, the Marlies had a little bit of a slip up earlier in the week. Um, they ended up forfeiting their Sunday and Monday games, so that would be 4 wins that they earned on the ice, but they won't get them because they had 7 defensemen on their roster. So all those games were illegal. There was some miscommunication between their NHL and AHL management there. I think the AHL GMs thought that the NHL would, waive the player for them, but their NHL GM failed to do that, and it cost the team 4 wins. However, I mean, forfeits or not, you can't take it away that they actually won the games on the ice. The fact that they had 7 defensemen really didn't affect the players they used in the lineup. I mean, it possibly could have, but what happened on the ice still happened. So you can't really count them out just because they got 8 points took away from them. You know?
Yeah, that's tough, man. Losing points like that. But I don't know with the Marlies and how well they've been doing. I think they can bounce back from even the 4 games taken away. Hutch, you got anything to say about that?
Well, all these Marlies forfeits kind of caught me as a surprise because, everyone around LG knows, thank the God, and he runs a pretty tight ship. So seeing his AHL team just throw away 4 wins like that, it really caught me by surprise. And, had they retained those points, they would have been tied for the league lead in points with Syracuse and Oklahoma City, I believe. So it really caught me as a surprise to see that, especially so early in a shortened season.
Yeah,
Eh,
that is tough. That is tough. But speaking of the shortened season, what do you guys know about the shortened season here?
Well, from what I can tell, it seems like we're cut down this season to 54 games as opposed to 82. And I'm assuming the goal behind this is to kind of get everyone off of the Xbox 360 before NHL 16 releases on the Xbox One. Because in past seasons we've had a bit of overlap in the playoffs and so on and so forth. So I think the intention behind this is to make sure that everything is clued up on the Xbox 360 before 16 comes out for the Xbox One. So there's no, kind of cross console stuff going on. I think that the 54 game season, in my opinion, is a little exciting because it's really putting the crunch on everyone. There's no, if you miss out in the first couple of weeks, your team may very well be out of it. So, from a management standpoint, it really makes you kind of get out there and get your players right away. You can't kind of wait until the trade deadline to assess your team. You need to make sure that you have your team going at all times, and you really can't afford to lose games.
I completely agree. The thing I like about the shortened season and how it's not going to overlap with the new console is that in past seasons, because it has overlapped, um, I don't know about you guys, but I trade my games in. So when I'm done, I trade them into GameStop to put money towards the next game, you know. Um, and if the game's already come out, the money you get for the game is not as much.
Yep, that's
I
right.
mean, so the fact that this will allow me to trade it in before 16 comes out, it puts more money in my pocket. So I like it. Um, well, this as being the first show, we're not going to go too in depth into a whole lot, and it's only what we just finished the second week. We're about to start the third. So, but trades have started. Trades, there's a lot of trades that have already happened. Who wants to talk about some big trades?
I guess I can talk about at least one trade that I noticed. It happened, I think, yesterday. Um, when I ran Syracuse in season 19, Golgi Groove was a real important part of that team. We won a President's Cup, and a lot of it was due to his ability on defense. And also, I know last season, in season 20, he did really well in Norfolk, but they decided to move him. They traded Golgi Groove to Albany for I Have No Name. Now, I don't know a lot about No Name, but I do know from some of my friends in the NHL that he is like a good player at the NHL level. So it's a pretty blockbuster trade. I'm just not sure if No Name was playing AHL games or not, or if he was just on their training camp or something. And anyway, as soon as Norfolk acquired No Name, they flipped him to Texas for two other players, Darth Invader and Blackbeard 34. Now, I don't really know much about those two players, but unless they're really good, and they're going to have to be to make up for Golgi's skill level, I think Albany wins the trade big time because Golgi's really going to bolster their defense, and he can move the puck. Like, that's his strength. He's more of an offensive type defenseman. So he's really good at a breakout pass, and he's really good. He's got a great shot. Like, he had like 8 or 10 goals when he was on Syracuse in season 19. So I know he can provide some offense from the back end, and I think he's really going to help out Albany. And he's going to be a pain in our ass, so to speak, now because we're in Syracuse. So we're going to have to deal with him more often, and I don't really like that.
Right, right.
So I guess one trade I'll step in. Well, actually, it's kind of a process of trades that I kind of been following, and I think this is a big reason that we can't count the Marlies out. And I think it's the goaltender they've acquired in Matt 85. Now, as we all know, Matt played phenomenal for the Falcons last season. In the offseason, he got flipped to the Americans for Gimme a Brewski and Winston Payne, who are both really good AHL players. And then, of course, Rochester flipped him to the Marlies for Dr. Drow. So I think that the Marlies made a really good trade in solidifying their goaltending. And like we mentioned before, I think that their team is so deep that we can't necessarily count them out because, they may have lost these 8 points, but I think they're still right there. And, you know, as has been known to people around LG, the Western Conference generally isn't as difficult as the Eastern Conference. So, just because they drop down to fourth or fifth, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're out of it. I think that he still have a really strong chance of taking the Western Conference and probably even leading the Western Conference at the end of the season.
Right. Are there any other trades we wanna touch on here? Or?
I don't really see anything else that jumps out to me, and I think right now teams are making some minor moves trying to fill their rosters. Probably people who have decided to drop out or they're not playing anymore. So I'm assuming that a lot of teams are making minor deals, kind of shoring up, their third line defense, maybe their backup goalie. But other than those two deals, I haven't really seen much that really jumps out to me.
Right.
I
All right.
was I was gonna say we've got like a bit of disparity between the two conferences. Um, I know the West has traditionally been weaker than the East, and I didn't know if you wanted me to just talk about how the Eastern Northeast is a really strong division, the one we're in Syracuse. All five of our teams are currently in a playoff spot, and it's something I haven't seen very often. It's not common for the whole division to be in a playoff spot, but we're really in tough. And some of the Western Conference teams, they've got a bit of an easier road throughout the season. You know.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and even being this year early in the season, that is something that to watch out for later on in the season. But that'll lead us into our next segment. We could talk about the Hutch your power rankings.
Yes. So anyway, I've done up the list of my top 5 teams in each conference. I'll talk a bit about the top 2 that I picked, but I won't go into a whole lot of detail. I don't want to bore everyone here. So anyway, I'll start off with the Eastern Conference, and I don't mean to be a bias here, but personally, I think that our team of Syracuse is probably the best team in the league. And we have a stacked offense. There's no two ways around that. And, we have
Homer.
very solid defense, especially our top core 2 defensemen in Cynical and Deligan. And then after that, we have really good goaltending. I think that Galley's had a really big bounce back this season. He played great for us last season, but, all the hard work that he put in is finally showing up this season. After Syracuse in the East, we have Worcester, followed by Albany, Springfield, and Binghamton. And then over to the Western, I think, as I mentioned before, I think that the Marlies are the best team in the Western Conference. And, they're being led by players like O'Leary, they got Wheel, and like I said, they have Matt 85, they have really strong goaltending, really strong offense, balanced defense as well. And, although they're sitting with 22 points, realistically, they probably should be tied at the top of the league with Syracuse with 30. So following them in the Western Conference is the Oklahoma City Barons. I think this is a bit of a surprise from last season. Great rebound there. They're followed by the Lake Erie Monsters, the Rochester Americans, and of course the Hamilton Bulldogs, which was recently taken over by Funsley.
There you go. Yep. So what about? I know later we're going to talk about players to watch. What about a team to watch? Maybe a team that didn't do so well. Say in the first or second week, but is looking to bounce back. What do you think? Any strong teams that surprise you that they're not up there?
You want to go Hutch, or you
Yeah,
want me to
sure.
say something?
Well, I'll pick out one team that I was looking at that's kind of surprised me, and it's Rochester Americans. They kind of struggled a bit last season. This season, it seems like new management is in there, and they're kind of heading in the right direction. Uh, they're third in the league in the time on attack differential. Their penalty kill not so good. They're last in the league with 52%. But I think that they have a real chance to kind of take charge in the Western Conference, especially now that Toronto has dropped down a bit with the forfeits. And that'll lead me to a game that I would suggest everyone to pay close attention to, and that's Rochester at Toronto, which goes on Tuesday night. And I think that this game could be a very important game in terms of the balance of the Western Conference.
Look, game of the week. But what about you, Colonel? Anything? Any teams that surprise you that they're so low in the rankings here?
I'm not really sure, but it's surprising that they're low because really we've only played 2 weeks, and if it is a 6 week season, there's still 66% of the season left to be played. Right? There's 2/3 left, so you're looking at a very small sample size of the entire season. I think some teams can bounce back into a playoff spot that they're not really currently in one. But as for teams to watch, I think that now that Albany picked up Golgi, I think they're going to be stronger on their back end. It's something that they needed to address, and I think they went out and did it. So I applaud Swiss, their GM, for going out and doing that. And I think they're gonna have a better week. And I'm not sold on the Worcester Sharks. I'm not sure that they can keep up the pace they've been setting. I think they're going to get some more top lines now this week, unless they've got a really weak schedule, and I haven't really checked it. I think they're going to get more top lines, and I'm not sure you might see them get some more losses this week.
Yeah, and just to add on what you were saying about Worcester, I did rank them second in the Eastern Power rankings, but like you said, they're in a traditionally weak division, and it's been that way for the past couple of seasons. So they may be the beneficiaries of being in a weaker division, as opposed to teams like Norfolk, which are in the Eastern Northeast with us, and they kind of got to go out and battle all these teams like the Crunch, the Devils, the Falcons, and the Sound Tigers each and every night. And, to pick one team that's probably surprising me is probably Norfolk. After winning the Calder Cup last season, they kind of dropped off in the rankings as such. And, with Mike, for his new gamer tag, Canadian Phantom, I believe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he gets called up to the NHL, and then they trade Golgi, so I'm not really sure what direction they're heading in. But it should be interesting to see if they can get back into the top of the Eastern Conference and defend their title.
All right. And that'll lead us into the last segment, players to watch. Who's got a player to watch?
I guess I'll start this one off. One player I've been keeping close attention to is Bullet 92 in Springfield. As you guys may or may not know, he led the CHL in scoring last season. He has 72 goals and led to 121 points. He was part of the Memorial Cup winning team in Belleville. And he was recently the 5th overall pick in the NHL entry draft by Columbus. So far this season, Bullet has 29 points, which ranks him 4th behind the Syracuse trio. And he's 5-1-0 with his only loss coming to Syracuse. So a bit of division rivalry going on there.
Oh, I know Bullet all too well. Being in that Memorial Cup final. And any other players to watch?
Well, I know Syracuse currently has the top 3 scorers in the AHL, and it's kind of hard for me to pick one of them to say which one's the player to watch, because the 3 of them all work extremely well together. That would be Datsuki and Deke, Spruce Moose, and Drake. And if I was going to pick one, I'd say keep an eye on Drake, because right now he has the goal lead in the AHL. He's got 21 goals in 6 games, and look for him to score some more, because he's a pure sniper. So I expect him to hold on to that lead and put a bit more of a stranglehold on it this week.
Yeah, and as he was mentioned there with the Syracuse trio, 3 of them are undefeated, 6-0, very dangerous line. And I'm not tooting our own horn here, but it's a very powerful line, and I think everyone around the AHL knows the 3 names, and they know that when these guys are in the lineup, you got to bring your top guys.
Right. Well, what about the other side of the puck? What about some defensemen or goalies to watch? Anything?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I think Galley 27 on our team struggled a bit last season, kind of found his way towards the end, but this season he's been lights out. I believe he's only lost 1 game to date. He's been one of the hottest goalies in all the league, and it's been very impressive, and I think that he will continue this moving through the season.
Right. Well, I'd like to talk about OKC's goalie, Leprechaun 205. I mean, he's currently leading in save percentage with 87.2. And I played against him. He's tough to score on. He's also second in goals against average at 2.13. So there's a tough goalie right there in OKC. Any defensemen that stand out to you guys besides Golgi there?
Yeah, I was going to say Odie is always a player to watch in any league. He's one of the best defensemen in this game. He's an NHL level defenseman playing in the AHL right now. He's on Hamilton, and he's having quite a good season so far. I mean, he's got 16 points in 5 games. He's playing defense, so I mean, he's an offensive threat whenever
he would have to with that contract that they shelled out for him. So yeah, I would hope that he would play that well. spent a lot of money
Yeah,
on it.
I mean, I'm
Better
not
be
sure if
doing
he's
it well.
actually worth 11 million or whatever. That's a lot. It's almost 50% of your cap in the AHL. I'm not sure one player is worth that, but he definitely is an elite player. I mean, he's pretty much won at every level, and I know he's in Pro Series and stuff too. So he's going to make a difference. He can win a game on his own, but I mean, he's already got one loss on his record, but it's probably not his fault. I mean, it's really a product. Your record is a product of your line mates, the people you play with. It's not always just one player who can take control of a game. But Odie, if I had to bet money, Odie's one of those guys who could take control of a game and win it for Hamilton.
All right. Well, let's talk about the what we want to see in the future of the LG Wheelhouse. I mean, this is our initial show. We haven't even put a show out, so we're talking about getting this a little bit more interactive. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, if anyone has interest in coming on as a guest, just reach out to, myself, Colonel, or Mike, and just let us know that you'd like to be a guest. And, if you're going to be around a certain week or whatnot, you can just let us know, and, we'll fit you in as appropriately.
Right, and you could always PM us on the site, or if you catch us online, you can hit us up in a party. Obviously, not during game times, guys. I mean, seriously. We got to concentrate on league games. Anyway, that'll do it for this episode of the LG Wheelhouse. I am your host, SirMikeKnight. With me is Colonel and Hutch, and from all of us, thank you for watching.